Yay. All right. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited. So I am Rachel. I'm a mom of three. I've been in um a business for 3.5 years. I've done self-development every day. I had a stroke last year and I'm completely back. Um, I went from not being able to walk and not being able to talk and not being able to eat and not being able to, breathe very well to being able to be a full-time mom, a homeschool mom, a home cook. Like all of this is glory to God. And thank God for good habits. Okay. So, the biggest thing that I want you to know is that if you feel like you are robbing from Peter to pay Paul, and you feel like you have been doing that for a lot of years, you probably have. You cannot decide where your money's going or going to go unless you track it. That's what I want to talk to you about because time, we'll get into that at the very end. It's the same thing. But if you want to know where your money's going, you have to track it. And you cannot rely on what the internet tells you or what ads tell you or what the poster boards tell you. Like couponing is one of the worst ways to save money, if you ask me. Okay, couponing gets you in a store, it makes you look at coupons, and where you want to save 50 cents on this and 10 cents on this and $1 on that, you're going to save $1.40, $1.50, right? $10. But you're going to end up spending 20 more than you would have because you got a good deal. And so it's a trick. Kind of like when a store says buy one get one free, or the next week it's the same price that it was at the buy one get one free. Okay. Or here's a really good one because I see this one quite often is 250 is the normal price, right? 250. But then every once in a while they'll run an ad that says 2 for $5. And so you think you're getting a really good deal, but 2 for $5 is 250. It's the same price. Stores are really good at hiring marketers who tell them, hey, here's what you say so people buy. Okay. So I want you to just write down where you're spending money. It doesn't matter. You get to decide where your life is, where you rob from Peter to pay Paul. Okay. So I want to give you an example because this is really a true life example. This is where I was when I started this business and why I started a business. Okay. Because I was sitting in a parking lot crying, going, God, I don't know where my money's going. I feel like it gets spent before I ever make it. I'm making good money. Why do I feel like it's always spent? Like my base was $400 a week, but then I made commissions on top of it. So I had a really good job. Like I may make an $800 paycheck. I may make $1,000. I may make $2,000, but on the base, that $400, I would make $800 and spend $800. And then I was still behind. Okay. I was still in the same boat. And so I'm sitting in the parking lot trying to buy food for my kids. Okay. I've got to go in the grocery store. And I constantly have to go in the grocery store and, oh, I can't get diapers and formula this week. I'll get ground beef. And then the next week, I'm like, oh, I can't get ground beef. I got to get diapers and formula. And I just kept running into the situation over and over and over. And I'm going, God, get me out of this mess. Like, what is wrong? Why on earth do I keep ending up here? You know, send somebody to fix this. And then I changed the prayer because after several weeks of that, I went, all right, God, this isn't working. You haven't done what I asked you to do yet. I'm going somewhere with that. That's not to say God won't provide, okay? That is to say that I changed my prayer from God, if you're not going to do it, and just fix it, just snap your fingers and it be all solved, then show me how. And all of a sudden that day, I found a business. He didn't give me a fish. He taught me to fish. Okay? Have you ever heard the analogy? You can give a man a fish and feed him for a day, but if you teach him to fish, you can feed him for life. That's what God did. Okay? That's why I think this is so cool. It's because it's so simple and so generic that anybody can do it, but we overcomplicate it. We make it so big and so treacherous because we don't take the time. And so it's such a mental load that we just carry around with us all the time. It doesn't matter if it's cooking or if it's cleaning or if it's we're too busy. We carry this mental load that says, I'm so busy, I can't do anymore. Do not give me any more. Okay. That's what I want us to stop. And that's why I started this Zoom. It's because I have been there. I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody or that I have, gone somewhere that nobody else can, because you can do it. There's nothing greater inside of me that is not inside of you already. And I know that because I was in that boat 3.5 years ago. It's not been that long. So I'm going to start from, I'm going to give you some generic numbers. I gave you a spreadsheet with all of this filled out, but kind of blank. So you can just enter your numbers because it's going to change based on if you're in the city and you can catch a bus, or if you live in the, if you're rural and you don't have another option but to have a vehicle, or if, you have kids and you need daycare, or, you know what I mean? All of this is going to change based on what you make, what your life situation is like, where you live. Okay. All of this changes. So I gave you a spreadsheet so you can plug in your numbers, but I'm going to give you an example of how this works. Because my hope is that this will work long term so you can say, oh, this is how to figure it out. Okay, so this works for a whole year, okay? And then at that point, you'll be out of debt. Hopefully, you'll be out of the cycle that you're in. And so, hang on a second, not right now. So hopefully, sorry, my 4-year-old wanted something. Joys of working from home. But hopefully you'll be out of this cycle because what you focus on expands. So if you say, oh my gosh, I always have this debt. I always am robbing from Peter to pay Paul. I'm always having to go to the grocery store and choose which kid gets to eat. And I can't do that anymore. It expands, it gets bigger. But if you can write it down and say, hey, here's where my money's going. How do I fix that? It expands. You fix it. Okay, so hopefully you can fix that by the time a year comes around. Okay, hopefully you can fix it before that, but it just depends. Again, you may be somebody who has a lot of debt. You may be somebody who has no debt. You may have a ton of bills. You may be somebody who's just getting started. It really just depends on where you are in life. So I'm going to open up my spreadsheet. All right. Because I don't have my screen shared, we're just going to talk through this. Okay, so all this is filled out with zeros. Basically, if you have a balance sheet, this is what you're going to see. If you go to your bank and you say, hey, give me a balance sheet, this is what they're going to give you. Okay, it's generic. It is not special in any way. There are some formulas in there, but they're all basic math, okay? You can figure it all out. It's very, very simple. All right, but first of all, we're going to start off saying that you make $10 an hour, and I'm going to give you some numbers, and then you can plug in where you really are. But down here where I have the $400, that is $10 an hour at 40 hours a week. Okay, then if you times or that by 20%, you basically take $80 out of it. And you see that 80 to the right of it. So basically you see $320. And this 400 doesn't really have to be down here, but it doesn't matter. All right. So you get $400 a week. 80 is taken out in taxes and 401k and, insurance or whatever, 20%. And so that's $80. So you see 320. Can you afford to work for $10 an hour? That's what we want to figure out, because you agreed to a certain amount through your employer. It is not your boss's job to see you to say, oh, you're worth more money. You already agreed to that amount of money. They're not going to, or they already would have. Okay. They would have already picked you up, pulled you out of the depths of the earth and said, oh, you do a great job for us. We want to pay you more. If they haven't done that and you've been there for any period of time, they're not going to do that. Okay. So take that off the table. If they do great, that's a bonus, but that's not what you're counting on. Okay. So you have $320 a week. Can you afford to work there? Because you're going to spend gas money, and I've just roughly put some numbers in here. So let's say that you drive 5 miles to work. Okay, so that's 10 miles a day. Okay, and actually I did that by 5, so that 5 days a week. That's why. Okay, it's 10 miles a day. Hang on, let me back up. I did that by 5 days. So 10 miles to work, 10 miles from work. Because most likely you have to drive, especially if you have to drop kids off at daycare, you have to drive about 10 miles to work. And then 10 miles back is 20 miles a day. And let's say you have a 20-gallon tank. Okay. So that's 1 gallon of gas a day just to get to and from work. That is not a spur of the moment, sporadic. It doesn't happen every once in a while. Like if you're going to work and you're coming from work, that's the amount of money that it's going to cost you, no matter what. Okay. I'm not plugging in, going to the grocery store. I'm not plugging in, going out to eat. Anything else you do, I don't care. You agreed to a certain amount of money, and this is what it takes to get there. Okay. So 1 gallon of gas a day, that's 5 days a week. So 5 gallons of gas. And let's say gas costs $3.50, because it kind of varies. It kind of goes up and it kind of goes down. I know I'm paying $3.50 right now. Brandon has a diesel truck and he's paying $4.50 a gallon. Okay. So it just varies. There's no way to really figure that out, but let's do it on a 20-gallon tank. You use gas, it's $3.50. Okay. That's $17.50 right there a week. It's not to do anything else. It's just to go to work. The 169, I plugged that number in because my car payment was $169. Okay. It took me an hour to get to work and an hour to get from work, but generically, it's only going to take you 10 minutes. So 169 plus $17.50. And then in my case, I had daycare. It cost $235 every single week. And then, and I plugged all these numbers in only because they were only costs associated with me going to work. Okay. Without me going to work, I wouldn't have had daycare. I didn't need those costs. That was a service that will cost me, but I only had to have it because I work. That's the only reason that I'm using that as an expense. Okay. Same thing, maintenance fees. I have $25 in here because if you take maintenance fees, that I'm just talking about to get your oil changed. Every 3 months, you have to get your oil changed. And if you're using that vehicle to get back and forth to work, you need to count that cost. That needs to be part of your bills for working. Okay. Same thing. You're going to need tires at least once a year, probably. Maybe once every 2 years. But again, it's another $10 a week. You need to count that cost in, or it's another $8 a week. You need to count that cost in. And there are different things, like you can add insurance for the vehicle if you choose, if you have insurance. If your mom pays it or your dad pays it or you don't have it, don't add that cost in. But if you have it, add a cost in. And then decide, did you really make any money? Because I'm going to tell you, my spouse paid for the insurance and the house and all the extras, okay? I was still negative $126.50 from going to work. No wonder I was stressed buying groceries. Okay, because when I would make a larger paycheck, it was gone because I was robbing from Peter to pay Paul. Okay, I simply want you to write down what you spend and where. Because if you stop at the gas station every once in a while, say it's 3 times a week, and you spend $10 or $5 when you go in, if you stop and spend $5 3 times a week every single week, that's $15 a week. That's $60 a month. It matters where you spend your money. Okay? This is not rocket science. This is all basic math. This is all very easy. So everyone can figure it out, but it matters that you write down where you spend money. Because if you're looking at going to work, or you're looking at, is it smarter for me to stay home and raise my kids? Or is it better to go to work? And you're looking at making 10 bucks an hour, it's probably better for you to stay home and raise your kids. Unless you're making some crazy amount of money. And I'm still going to say it's better to stay home and raise your kids because I homeschool. I have seen the village. I do not want them raising my kids. All right. These people are out there crazy. These people are out there spending money, robbing Peter to pay Paul. The whole point is, if you will take into consideration what you spend and where you spend it, you're going to find money that you didn't even realize you were spending. Because it's so easy. We're going to talk about some of the ways that you can save money. And some of the ways that I have learned to do that is at the grocery store. I save more money at the grocery store than I do by driving 5 or 10 miles to save 10 cents on gas or 20 cents on gas. If I drive 10 miles or 5 miles to and from the gas, or 10 miles round trip, okay, 5 miles to the gas station and 5 miles back, okay, to save 10 cents, and I have a 20-gallon tank, I only saved 75 cents. It wasn't worth my time. Okay? That's why I'm telling you that what you've heard in the media, what you've seen in the ads, it's crap. You save 75 cents, your time is worth more than that. If not, you're telling yourself that your time isn't valuable. And it is. You're valuable. Your time is one of your largest commodities. You could make money instead of trying to save money. All right, so some of the ways that I do that at the grocery store is I don't buy processed foods. Okay, buying health foods at the grocery store and processed foods at the grocery store, biggest waste of money, my waste of money ever. Most of the health foods aren't even health foods. Okay, if you're in the produce section at the grocery store and it says, what does it say? Oh my gosh, I completely lost it. Yeah, I'm glad you agree. That's oh my gosh, I cannot remember. Anyway, you're in the health or the produce section of the grocery store, and organic is the word, and you look for organic. You're only paying more because the grocery store marked it up for you to pay more. They only took enough, so much of it. So you're paying the grocery store. You're not even paying the farmer, who actually, it saves them money to not use the pesticides. it didn't save the farmer anything. You didn't help anyone except the grocery store who marketed it well and saved you money. And I only know because I grow my own garden. It is organic unless you use pesticides. Okay. Um, I got my own spill on that. But honestly, there are just certain little things like the baby carrots that you see that are more expensive. They're processed. They have products on the outside that keep them from turning brown. Okay, it's cheaper just to buy real carrots. It's cheaper and they may not be as pretty, but they go in my Ninja just like a baby carrot would, except that they have less on them and they were cheaper. Okay, so there are some very simple ways to save. One of the biggest ways that I've seen is I buy a whole chicken instead of just like frozen chicken breast because I save about $5 because I don't buy a whole chicken breast. I buy a whole chicken. And so that is more cost effective and tells my brain more about what I'm worth and my time is worth than driving for however many minutes to save 10 cents on gas. Okay, that's why this matters. It matters that you write down because you're not going to see the data until you can see the data, and you can't see the data until you write it down. Okay, my numbers don't matter. Your numbers matter. And your numbers matter because you can't fix a problem until you know that there is a problem and why there's a problem. Okay, so if you get to the point where you're like, man, I gotta, provide for my kids, because that's kind of where I was. I felt like I just needed to provide. I had been a single mom and I had worked all of my life and I'd worked really, really hard. And that's why I was so tore up about being back in a place where I was. It's like, God, I shouldn't be here. I've worked 60 hours a week since I was 13. Like, I've worked really hard for a really long time. I've built fences. I've cut yards. I'm the second oldest of 13 kids. Like, I've worked hard for a very long time. And this is where I am. I have nothing to show for it. Seriously? And I was homeschooled. Like, I wasn't even put in the school system. Okay? Like, crazy. I didn't even have TV most of my life. And I was like in tears going, God, I don't understand why I'm still here. Why did I end up back here? Like, I didn't do anything that the world said you should do. And, people end up in these positions and I don't understand why I'm in this position. The reason is because I hadn't figured out how to fix the position that I was in. And I did that simply by writing things down for a week. Just keep track of where you spend your time, where you spend your money. Okay, it's not hocus pocus or bogus or anything. Honestly, it won't fix anything. It won't fix a darn thing. And for a long time, I ran. Excuse me. I ran from the fact that we should write things down. And I'm talking probably 10 years. I'm better than that. I'm smarter than that. I'm more capable than that. It didn't take me any time once I started writing them down and going, oh, oh, there's where my problem is. No wonder I feel like I'm robbing from Peter to pay Paul, because I was. Because I was $126.50 short on my normal average week. It didn't matter that I made 800 or 1,000. I just caught up. So I was constantly robbing from Peter to pay Paul. And if you want to make more money, I challenge you to ask that, to decide that, to figure out what you need, but you won't know. You have all this potential. to say, hey, I could. I'm good enough. I mean, maybe my bosses will come to me, but until you write it down and see where you are, you won't know that you need a better way. And you won't know how to find a better way or how to, solve a problem until you decide that you are tired of the way things are. And that's really all I have because honestly, once you start saving money, it's amazing how many ways you can find to save time. Like, for one, if you decide not to drive 5 miles to a gas station and 5 miles back, it saves you about 20 minutes. You were worth more than that. 20 minutes was worth more than 75 cents. You can do a prep day because that's what I do. I do most of my cooking on Sunday and it takes me about 4 hours. I save so much time and so much money, and I don't have to cook all week long. And it didn't save me so much time as far as the cooking part of it. It was the mental load of what are we going to have for dinner? What's going to be for dinner? That took more time than actually cooking. So I am so excited. If you guys have questions, if you guys need anything, reach out to me. I'm here to help in any way that I can. I hope that you do this because honestly, until you start putting it down on paper, and nobody has to see it. Nobody has to be witness to this. You're just gonna go, oh, oh wow, I can fix this. And it's amazing how fast you can fix it when you start to see it. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great night. That's pretty much all I had. If you guys have any questions, I'm gonna stop the recording.